The galaxy feared human weapons, so they took them away. No guns, no fleets, no armies. They thought this would force humanity to its knees. They never ever imagined what humans could do with silence. The decision was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, every major civilization agreed on one thing. Humans were too dangerous to be allowed weapons. It wasn't because humans were the strongest, or because they had the biggest fleets. It was because they adapted too fast and remembered too well. So the Galactic Accord was signed. Humanity was disarmed. Every plasma cannon was dismantled. Every warship was either scrapped or seized by alien forces. Our orbital defenses were powered down under the watchful eyes of their fleets. The galaxy called it peace. We humans called it patience. I was there. My name is Elias Monroe. I watched the final human cruiser, the Endurance, drift into a star, its engines cold, its hull scarred by a dozen wars it was never allowed to finish. Around me, cameras floated, recording the moment for galactic history. "Do you accept the terms of permanent disarmament?" the Avari High Judge asked. His wings were folded with a ceremonial grace that felt almost insulting. I looked at him, at the assembly of alien faces, and I nodded. "We do." There was no anger in my voice, no threat, and that, I could tell, unsettled them more than shouting ever could. For 10 long cycles, the galaxy prospered, or so it seemed. Trade routes expanded, old border wars quieted down. And humans, once feared for our unpredictability, became an afterthought. We focused on logistics, infrastructure, communications, quiet, boring things that no one else wanted to manage. We became the galaxy's mechanics, its accountants, its delivery service. The galaxy relaxed, and that was their second mistake. The Car Dominion never signed the accord. They were patient too. And when they finally attacked, they didn't target military worlds. They targeted silent, sensitive systems, communication hubs, navigation relays, energy distribution networks. Entire regions went dark without a single shot fired. The galaxy panicked. Emergency sessions were called, fleets mobilized, but they were too slow, too disorganized. By the time the Accord members responded, Car forces had already seized control of key choke points, strangling the flow of resources and information across the galaxy. And then, the unthinkable happened. The car moved toward human space. The assembly erupted in chaos. "They are unarmed," cried one envoy. "They are protected by the Accord," shouted another. The Car warlord's response was broadcast across every channel, a chillingly simple message. "Silence is not a weapon," he declared, "and we will use it." Human colonies went dark, one by one. They weren't destroyed. They were disconnected. No signals out, no calls for help, just absence. A void where a voice used to be. The galaxy, the same one that had stripped us of our defenses, finally turned to us for help. I stood before the assembly again, older now and much, much more tired. "You must rearm them," the Avari High Judge said, his voice urgent. "We authorize it immediately." I just shook my head. Too late. Fear, real fear, rippled through the chamber. "What do you mean, too late?" demanded a Vrax general, his mandibles clicking with anxiety. I met his eyes and then the eyes of every being in that room. "You took our weapons," I said, my voice calm and steady. "But you left us something far more dangerous." And then the lights in the Grand Assembly chamber dimmed. Across the galaxy, human-built systems began to change their behavior. It was subtle at first. Cargo routes adjusted by fractions of a percent. Maintenance schedules for critical systems slipped, then vanished entirely. Navigation beacons, the very stars that guided ships through the void, began transmitting perfectly legal but ever so slightly altered timing signals. Nothing illegal, nothing violent, just quiet inaccuracies, a cascade of them. Car fleets began missing their rendezvous points by seconds, then minutes. Entire jumps failed to align, leaving ships stranded light years from their intended targets. Their supply vessels arrived at empty coordinates, their containers marked as delivered but never received. Their warriors waited for orders that never came, lost in a sea of near-perfect static that drowned out every command. The car warlord roared in frustration from his command bridge. "Find the source! Find who is attacking us!" They searched, they scanned, they hunted, but they never found it. Because we weren't attacking, we were simply withdrawing our cooperation. The galaxy had been built on a foundation of human logistics, human redundancy systems, human error correction protocols. We designed the fail-safes that assumed goodwill and cooperation. We didn't sabotage them, we just stopped fixing them. We let the universe's natural tendency toward chaos do the work for us. Without our constant silent maintenance, the galaxy's intricate infrastructure began to unravel, not explosively, but quietly, predictably. The car advance stalled, then it fractured, then it collapsed entirely under its own weight. Starving fleets turned on each other for fuel and food. Command structures dissolved into confusion and paranoia. Not a single human shot was fired, not one. Days later, the car warlord surrendered, his mighty empire brought to its knees not by a bang, but by a whisper of nothing. The assembly reconvened in stunned silence. Their most powerful supercomputers analyzed every byte of data from the conflict. "You violated no law," the Sentinex AI concluded, its synthesized voice filled with something like awe. "Yet you neutralized a galactic-scale invasion." I simply nodded. "We followed the rules." The Avari High Judge, the same one who had overseen our disarmament, spoke softly. "What do you want, human Elias Monroe? Name your price." I thought of the darkened colonies, the families who waited in silence, trusting that we had a plan. Trusting in something more than guns. "Nothing," I said. "Just remember this." I turned to leave the silent chamber. As I reached the door, I paused and looked back over my shoulder. "You feared our weapons," I said, letting the words hang in the air. "But you never asked what we were holding back. The galaxy never banned human weapons again, not because they trusted us, but because they finally understood. Silence in human hands was never empty. It was a promise. It was a threat, and it was a weapon more powerful than any fleet they could ever build. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.